Could you argue that dentistry is an art form?
Bro, dentistry is like 50% art. If you're not a good artist, don't get into dentistry. You're not going to be able to sculpt what is required. Or they'll teach you, but you'll not enjoy it very much. No, I mean, dude, honestly, whenever I make these crowns, and when I make really nice fillings for people, and like nice dentures and stuff, you know, it is artwork. So I genuinely do enjoy it. One of the most fun experiences I had when I was in school was actually hand designing dentures out of wax and stuff. Cause I was like, yeah, I could, you know, cause I like knew my proportions pretty well. I knew things like fairly, like I was always an artist. I was always drawing stuff, you know. So it was just fun for me to do. And I always tell like my interns in college that are trying to get into dental school that I'm like, bro, if you guys don't know how to draw something with proportions, so I'm using a low speed burr to get rid of any demineralized tooth structure. So basically, when bacteria invade teeth, they leave a lot of demineralized structure. So your teeth are like basically mineralized. They're COH3, I believe, in them. So when bacteria go in there and they produce acid, that stuff decomposes. And so what you get is, when you use a slow speed and you go over demineralized structure, it turns like into some like kind of like a custard that comes out. So it's a good way to get started in figuring out what is cavity and what's not cavity, because it's not strong enough really unless you like push really hard to get rid of structure that isn't demineralized. So that's why the slow speed exists, to help dentists kind of avoid overdoing it. But again, it all depends on your touch. If you have a heavy hand, you'll overdo it anyway. Again, the artist in me, I'm like, well, I see this margin, and I know what 2 millimeters basically looks like. So if the margin's not looking right, I'll go back over it before it's finalized. Most of dentistry, honestly, at some point you get to you don't really have to see everything. And if you spend too much time thinking about being able to see everything, then you're not going to develop the skill to actually just be able to feel things. Like, it's a really small space, you know. Like, I'm wearing 3 times magnification here, or 1.5 times magnification here. And even then, it's hard to see everything. So you have to have an understanding that some of the stuff that you're going to be going through as a dentist is situations where you don't necessarily see things, but that you can feel them. And that's what the Explorer is for too. When I'm over here in the back, I'm basically going over all the areas that I use a slow speed in to see if there's anything squishy. If there's anything squishy, I know I missed cavity. But if there's nothing squishy, I know that I can basically carry on. So tactile sensation is also very important. And just an understanding of, again, proportions, right? So if you're making a tooth, if you're making a crown, the crown is going to go equally over the tooth on all of the surfaces of the tooth that you've taken away. So it's very important to like have a mental picture of what the tooth used to look like and take away enough material so that when the crown comes in, it looks like the original tooth, or better than the original tooth, because that's what the patient came to you for. They're not looking for something that looks kind of weird, you know. If anyone notices your dental work, it's either a really, really good thing or a really bad thing. So the funny thing about our dentist is, like, for instance, I'll end up doing all this work and I'll put the temporary crowns on and I'll be like, well, what did you do? And it's like, that's kind of the point. So whenever you have heme, or whenever you prep a crown properly, you're gonna end up nicking the gum a little, okay? And so it's very important to make sure that when in the process of doing that, when you're ready to take impressions and when you're ready to kind of move on to the next stage, that everything is clean and is blood free and is saliva free. So the way that we do that is this stuff called hemodent, which I basically put on a brush and I put in the areas that I have nicked the gum a little, so that that blood doesn't hinder my impression. I get a lot of spiritual lessons from patients actually, about how to live like a productive life and how to go about, I don't know, seeking passion. In dental school, I had a lot of really cool patients that would tell me things like, you know, Turab, you're gonna be a really good dentist, and this is why, but just make sure that you're doing this. No, I was more focused on being a good dentist and what that means, like the philosophy behind being a good dentist. You know, like what does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to actually have empathy and like create systems that can help more than just your patients? Yeah, so one patient was in the cab alongside me, and we were talking, and she's like, oh, so you're a dental student, whatever. And she was like, you know what I really hate about dentists, and don't ever do this, don't be a stoic dentist. And so that, and she was basically alluding to the fact that like we get so stressed out and we're so concerned about millimeters and stuff, like not being able to crack a joke and not being able to lighten the mood, bro, you're gonna get absolutely screwed. You're gonna burn out. Like, it's not worth it. Yeah, like it's stressful enough. I mean, look how small of a space I'm dealing with all the time, you know? So if on top of that you add your inability to self-soothe, you're about to have a really tough time being a dentist. Or really doing anything useful, frankly. Self-soothing is like a massive part of emotional intelligence. Yeah, don't get it twisted that emotional intelligence is like all kumbaya and shit. It's not. Emotional intelligence is like, you know, how do you need to function in order to be useful and responsible?